Good morning, everybody. I want to spend a little bit of time this morning talking about something that we kind of sort of joke about in the live stream weekly Q and A session. That's question and answer session that I do on this channel. If you haven't seen that, you can check it out. We do it on Fridays, and we invite anyone to ask questions, make comments, as long as they're trumpet or music related, right? But we talk about on there, or joke about, the trumpet gods. And it's really not trumpet gods, it's trumpet God, but it sounds funny when you say trumpet gods. And mostly Anthony talking about this, but it is kind of funny, but it's not a joke. That's the thing, it's not a joke. And so I wanted to spend some time in this video clarifying what I mean by trumpet God and explaining why it's important to not worship the trumpet God. So before we get into the details of this, I need to clarify why we're talking about this. I am a Christian, but I don't evangelize, I don't preach Christianity in my lessons because I consider that unprofessional. And I feel like these videos are an extension of my lessons, okay? So my policy for these videos has been to not preach or evangelize in these videos. I think that's very important. I actually think that it's not only unprofessional, that it's also not Christian. Because it's false pretense, right? And anything done out of anything that challenges the person's trust, I think ends up being a negative in the context of Christianity. So I wanted to make that clear because this is not just me evangelizing. I don't mind telling people I'm a Christian. I'm not a closet Christian. So, and I'm not ashamed of being Christian. And I might even every once in a while mention scripture in the videos, trumpet videos, see? So, because those things kind of help, those stories kind of help us understand certain things, certain ways. But I'm not telling you that for religious reasons, I'm telling you that for trumpet reasons, right? So, and the same thing with this trumpet God thing. It doesn't even matter what religion you are. This trumpet God stuff comes out of my Wholesome Musical Priorities, right? And I've made it clear in the Wholesome Musical Priorities all along that this is not a Christian thing. You know, this even worked for atheists, right? So, need to make that clear because it might sound, people might misunderstand, and I don't want that. Okay, so, oh, and I didn't get to the point. The reason why I'm sharing this is because I actually believe that when you worship the trumpet God, it makes you a worse trumpet player, not a better trumpet player. And there's examples. Sure, you know, I think in history, the public has elevated some examples, and they would say stuff. I think maybe I don't want to say this in authority. It's somewhere back in the back of my mind. Someone accused Paganini of selling his soul to the devil, and that's why he was so good. Now, I don't know historically if this is true or not, but society elevates that kind of story, saying, oh, this guy is so awesome because he sold his soul to the devil. But the truth is, if you do your own research and look at people who have worshipped the music god. Now, there's music god, there's trumpet god. I think the trumpet god is actually a worse thing to worship than the music god. And we know that in the music world, right? Someone who puts trumpet before music is going to play like a trumpet player, not a musician. I mean, we know that. If you've been hanging around the trumpet community long enough, you'll know that those are the worst trumpet players, right? The good trumpet players are the ones that make music. So, yeah, so those people who have, quote unquote, sold their soul to the devil, if you do your own research, you'll find out they're not Paganini. Most of them aren't really all that good, and definitely not good enough to justify selling their soul to anybody. And it does. I mentioned earlier about using Bible stories. It really does remind me of the story of Esau and Jacob. They were twins. Esau comes out first. So he, in that old school, he got the birthright. Right? The oldest son gets a little bit more of everything. And so one day Esau was coming back to camp or whatever, and he was hungry. And Jacob was making a pot of soup or lentils or something like that. And Esau says, "Give me some lentils." And Jacob says, "Give me your birthright." and Esau says, "Sure, take my birthright. I want to eat right now." And that's how I see this, right? If you sold your soul to the devil so you could be a better trumpet player, I think you'd be better off with a bowl of lentils. Really. And to me, it's the same sort of thing, right? Something precious you gave away for nothing. And talking about the devil, right? Sold your soul to the devil. That's a common term in music. Well, not music, but you know what I mean, music culture, right? Maybe not as common as it was when I first heard it in the 80s. But back in the 80s, amongst the people I was hanging out with, that was almost a compliment that you paid someone. Someone was so awesomely good, he must have sold his soul to the devil, that kind of thing, right? So I'm not saying that those people sold their soul to the devil. I'm saying, yes, sometimes people get their priorities mixed up and make the music their God. But I'm getting ahead here. Let's not get ahead. Okay? So the point I'm making now is it doesn't make you a better player. A lot of times it makes you a much, not just worse player, a much worse player. And that's my job as a trumpet teacher, is to help you don't be a worse player. Right? You know, I'm trying to help you be a better player. And you know, if you look at the history about how I got to this place, it wasn't one day I woke up and said, "Hey, I need to start preaching about the trumpet gods." It wasn't overnight. Over a course of decades, things that happen. And part of it, to be 100% honest with you, I think in the earliest stages of my career, maybe I was a trumpet worshiper myself. It didn't last long because I was already saved, and I recognized early on what I was doing and how it was preventing me from being a better player. Okay? So yes, a sequence of events happen one after another that gave me revelations leading to this now. And now this one's been solidified. Now, This Trumpet God thing stems out of what I teach about the Wholesome Priorities. I call it Wholesome Musical Priorities. Basically, when I talk about that, what I'm talking about is what should be most important in your life. And just to give you a quick overview of what that is, the top most important thing should be whatever you believe. If you're a Christian, your faith as a Christian should be above all other things in your life. My mouth is dry. That's why I'm having some trouble speaking right now. Your faith. Now, if you're not a Christian, if you're a Buddhist or a Muslim or it's the same thing applies. So, second on the list is your health. Third on the list is your family. And I'm not going to go into the details of all these. Fourth on the list is your job, or if you're a student, your school. And music comes fifth on the list. And this is important, right? Because what this means is there's going to be times when you don't have time to practice. So I remember I got kicked out of, they threatened to kick me out. And then I left. There was a group on Facebook. And I said that having to practice every day was a sign that you were a trumpet worshiper. And people got bent out of shape. The administration people, the admins, moderators, whatever you call them, contacted me, told me that I was out of line. See, in this social media world, we're not allowed to say anything that makes people uncomfortable, right? But yes, I got on there and I said, if you practice every day, there's a chance that you're probably a music worshiper, or worse, a trumpet worshiper, because life happens, right? Life happens. There are times, like, in order for you to practice every single day, you need to practice when your parents die, when your sister is born, when the day you get married. You have to practice on your honeymoon. You have to practice the day your son or daughter was born. The day your son got married. Life happens. The day of finals. The person who puts trumpet ahead of all things and practices every single day, when his job, if he's got a job, when his job requires him to be there all day, he will refuse to be there all day and instead practice his trumpet. And what's the amazing thing about this is I'm not saying these people aren't good as trumpet players. They're just not that good. Okay, please understand that. I'm not saying that they're horrible players. Some of these guys that I know that do this are okay players. But why? What did they get out of this? What did they gain? To be an okay player. And what did they sacrifice? Is it really worth it? You see what I'm saying? So that's the first thing that the musical priorities tells us, is that there's not enough time to get all of this done. It's just not possible. It's just not possible if you're living those priorities. So you've got, for that matter, like as a Christian, when it comes to time, we're supposed to take one day off a week. There's the Sabbath. Now, people will get into theological debates about whether or not Christians have to observe the Sabbath or not. And then people will use that to their convenience, right? And I don't think using any of this theological debate stuff for your convenience is what all of that was meant to be, right? So, so yes, there are days as a Christian you just shouldn't be practicing. And I'm sure it's the same way with most religions. So yes, the first thing at the time. And then there's other things. So we look at this in the context of priorities because, like look at the health thing. Someone who, I like to use the example of John Faddis, right? And I don't know any of these people personally. This is urban legend. I don't know how true it is. And pardon me if I'm spreading something that's not true. It just makes a great example of what I'm talking about. Let's say it this way. If it is true, this is definitely a example of trumpet worship. So what I heard was that there's people who, because John Faddis plays so high, and he's got a chipped tooth, that there are people who will go to their dentist and shave the tooth down to look just like his so that they can play high. So these guys, if this is true, these guys are worse than worshiping the trumpet god. They're worshiping the high note trumpet god, the high note god, which is much worse than just worshiping a trumpet god, which is much worse than worshiping the music god. So, I hope that makes sense. So that's another way that these priorities come into play. It's not just whether you practice every day or not. It's the decisions you make throughout the day. And chances are, if you got your teeth filed down to make you play higher notes, chances are it didn't work. And I know, yes, that might be urban legend, and I apologize to John Faddis if that offends him. I've gotten to see John Faddis several times. I think the first time I ever heard John Faddis was at the Q's Club in Montreux back in the 80s. Was it the Q's Club? It might have been the 90s. It might have been 91. I've been to Montreux 3 times with school bands. Montreux Jazz Festival. And it might have been that last one in 91. Great player. He's definitely one of the guys everybody should be listening to. So I have anyway, we also did a clinic, whatever you want to call it, a talk, masterclass, at HSPVA when I was teaching there. And I'll never forget, someone asked him about warming up, and he said that he didn't warm up. He didn't do warm up. Warm up was mental, he said. And then he pulled his horn out. He said he was coming from Asia or Japan or something like that. And he says he hadn't practiced in over like a day or something, like well over 24 hours, I think, because those are long flights, right? And his very first line that he played a jazz line, right? Picked it up. And with the fingering, right? He had the D down, if I'm not mistaken. He played a jazz line starting on the D above super C. Jazz line all the way down to the lower register. He says, tell me I need to work up or warm up or something like that. And yeah, so that was a very inspirational talk that he gave to the kids there. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Um, there are lots of examples like that of people doing weird stuff that indicates that they put the trumpet above everything else in their lives. I had a student one time, I won't mention his name, he has since then gotten his life straightened out. But this guy came to me one time, said he was going to leave his wife. And in fact, this is how I started all of my, when I started teaching the Wholesome Musical Priorities, it was triggered by this event. He was going to leave his wife. I was, you know, why? What happened? And he goes, she just doesn't understand the music. I told the guy immediately that he was officially fired as my student. I told him I didn't want to see him on social media talking about trumpet because he was going to the forums and stuff like that. I told him that if I caught him doing that I would not ever teach him again. And so I told him to get his marriage straightened out first and then get back to me. And he did, actually. He never got back to taking weekly lessons again, which is fine. Because life happens, right? That's the way this is supposed to be. But he got his marriage straightened out. Him and his wife came out to one of my jazz gigs when my group was playing at Cezanne. Cezanne was a jazz club here in Houston, the best jazz club in Houston until they closed it down. And he came out with his wife and had a good night listening to my music, and it was nice to catch up with them and all that. He's got a better life now. And if he's got a better life, see, that's the thing, is having a better life is going to give you better music. I'm sorry, that's just the truth of it. Better music isn't about how good you are. That's one of the lessons I've learned over the years. That's why musicians don't understand a lot of stuff about the music industry, right? Because they're still stuck on how good everybody is. You know, how fast they can play with beautiful tone, all this stuff. That's not it. I do believe that we have a responsibility as musicians to improve all of that for the rest of our lives until we die. We should constantly be improving all of that. But that's not what gives value to the music that we perform. It's the human connection that gives value. It's the human connection. And see, that's what happens when you put trumpet first, is you destroy that human connection. So look at what else. You have people who they won't take a certain job because they, you know, instead of doing what's best for their family, they're going to take a job that makes it easier for them to take gigs. So because of this, the family suffers. If the family, so, and you know, I understand the other argument. The other argument says, well, this suffering is what leads to great music. And there is some truth to that. There is some truth to that. There are a percentage of the public that eats that negative stuff up big time. Right? The end result of that, basically they're eating your soul. They're eating your soul. They're killing you and your family, and you're killing them. I mean, that's sure, yeah. So there is that other argument, okay? Um, that the negative, ugly stuff does sell, and then you can say, oh, well, I'm a successful player because because I do the ugly stuff. Now I don't think that's as prominent now as it used to be. I think, but there was a time when ugliness sold a lot better than great music. I think we're seeing a turnaround on that right now. And maybe because it wasn't sustainable, I don't know. But anyway, so so at each one of these levels of the wholesome musical priorities, if you flip any of them and put the trumpet above any of those levels, I can give you a detailed explanation of how that hurt your music instead of helping it. If you put trumpet ahead of your schooling, and you decided to get bad grades because you wanted to invest all that time into your horn, you know, the last thing this world needs is another stupid trumpet player. And I don't mean that to say that trumpet players are stupid. That I think that's my point. They're not stupid, right? So we don't know about the stupid ones because they never got off the ground. Does that make sense? We don't know about the stupid ones because they never got anywhere. That's what I mean when I say that. The last thing the world needs is another stupid trumpet player, because there are a bunch of those and they are sitting, most of them are probably delivering pizzas now or something. So you see how I'm making this connection here. Okay, so the whole God thing is when you put, so in the Christian religion, not all people believe this, right? Not everybody teaches this. But maybe half of the Christians believe that whatever you put before God is a God, right? So, and it can happen with anything. If you make sports more important to you than God, then sports have become your God. And I don't mean playing sport. I mean guys that have to watch games, right? That's become a God. Getting good grades can become a God. Getting good grades is a good thing. Put it ahead of God and you've made it a God. You see what I'm saying? That's where this comes from. Anything you put absolutely first in your life has become a God. And what I'm saying here, to summarize what I'm saying here is that anything you put, anytime you put trumpet first in your life, you have now forgotten what it is we're doing this for. You've run a recursive program in your head. Recursive program is a program that calls itself. So if you put trumpet first in your life, that function is just calling that function, calling that function, calling that function. Whereas if you do these other things, if you make God first, or your religion first, you make your health second, your family third, your work, your responsibility to work or school next, and then do your music. Now that music has a purpose in your life aside from just music. When you have that purpose, you make a human connection, and there's more value in what you do as a player because of that human connection. If you worship the trumpet God. Worship the trumpet God means you put trumpet ahead of everything else. If you worship the trumpet God, your music suffers because you no longer have the capability to make that human connection. And yes, there will be people who worship you because you're worshiping the trumpet God, but your music will have no value. You see what I'm saying? I guess in a sense we're separating the music from you. Your music will have no value if you do this, even though maybe people will be worshiping you. I think that just came out. That's something I've never said before, but it makes sense. The next obvious assumption you can draw from what I'm saying here. Because there are people that they eat this stuff up. And yes, you might be successful while your music is not. And I'm not here to make you successful. I'm here to make you a better player so that your music is successful. That's an interesting way to put it. And I think that's the perfect place to end. Okay, end this video. We're talking about making your music better music, which I think makes you a better person, a happier person, a more satisfied person. The other person, the one that makes you, well, you're worshiping a trumpet God, your music has no value, but people worship you because you're worshiping the trumpet God. You're living a tormented life. You don't have to live a tormented life. Okay? If you do this, if you do what I'm saying, and you put other things in your life at a higher priority, then your music will have value, maybe enough value to last hundreds of years, like Bach, right? And you will no longer be a tormented soul. That's where I stand on this issue, okay? I hope that helps. If you have any questions about this stuff, please feel free to ask. If you hate what I have to say, go ahead and share that with us too. If there's something you want to add, if you are also a deep philosophical thinker like I am, then and have another angle to share on this, I would appreciate hearing that too. Okay? So, other than that, God bless you. And we'll see you on the next video, okay? Have a great day. Thank you for watching this video. I wanted to spend just a minute to let you know that there's a better, more convenient, more organized way to access all of these videos. We have literally hundreds of videos here on YouTube, and quite frankly, it's a bit of a mess. So, to make it a little bit more organized and easier for you to access what you want to access, I created a separate page, a separate area on my website. That's eddielewis.com. And if you go to eddielewis.com, click on the menu, click on videos. It will take you there. I have the videos categorized, and then within those categories, some of them, like the educational videos, you can click on it and go in there and look for the videos specifically that you're looking for. Okay? So go to eddielewis.com, EDDIELEWIS.com. Thank you very much.